I appreciate the kind words, and pastor is only as good as his staff. He's only as good as his support, and the staff that I've been blessed with is truly remarkable. And of course, last week I told you guys how blessed I have been, am, and will be to be supported by Jenna in such a prominent way at home. And it's a pleasure to serve as your pastor, and I look forward to what the Lord's going to continue to do in our midst and through my ministry here at Calvert Baptist Church. And I want to invite you to join me in Luke chapter 15 this morning, if you haven't done so already. And we'll be looking in verses 8 through 10, which was our scripture reading today. Luke chapter 15, verses 8 through 10. And I want to give a recap of where we kicked off from and launched from just a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of Luke chapter 15, because at the end of Luke chapter 14, Jesus gives one of his most intense challenges on discipleship in the entire Bible. And then he follows that up by saying, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And who heard was everybody that we typically don't want to see come and respond. It was the sinners. It was those whose lifestyle or go against the exact law of the Old Testament. It was the Pharisees. It was those who abused the law and used it for their own power and for their own gain. It was the tax collectors, those double traitors who profited not only off of their job against their brothers, but they actually turned against their brothers for the Roman government to make sure that they got what they wanted and they got what they deserved, and they did it against their own friends, their own community. And so we see this scene unfolding, and so you've got all these people around watching, and you've got the Pharisees and you've got the tax collectors, and the Pharisees are looking at the tax collectors, and they're most importantly looking at Jesus and saying, why is he allowing these individuals to come and sit with him? You've got those who are looking at this from the outside, and they're upset that Jesus welcomed the sinners, that he welcomed those who were tax collectors, that he welcomed those who lived in a way that was contrary to the word of God, against the law. And so he launches into this lengthy example about God. And it's told as three parables, but really it's all one answer. And we're going to look at it in three parts, going back to the beginning of October to today and then to next Sunday. And we spent time looking at the lost sheep. That's verses 3 through 7. And today what we're going to look at is the lost coin. It's the second part of Jesus' response to the crowd. He says in verses 1 and verse 2, all the tax collectors and the sinners were coming near to him to listen to him, both the Pharisees and the scribes. Now these are the people who knew the law the best. They knew the word of God the deepest. They knew it backward and forward. They knew every iota, every T that was crossed, every I that was dotted, every little grammatical intricacy of the law they were familiar with, and they saw everyone coming and they said, this man, which is always an attitude of contempt, this man receives sinners and eats with them. So he goes in and he tells them about how God is like a shepherd who goes after the lost sheep. Even if there's 99 in the fold that are in safety, he goes after the one. And then today he's going to describe himself as a woman who lost one of her 10 coins. And between these two responses from Jesus, what we understand about God, and we can't miss this, is that God is not indifferent toward lost people. He is not indifferent toward lost things. We are. We are indifferent. We assume. We let somebody else do the work. We let someone else do the going, do the searching, do the sweeping, because we assume that everybody around us feels and views things the exact same way that we do. But God is not indifferent toward lost things. In our lives, if we have what we want, if we get what we want, we're good. We don't concern ourselves with what others might have lost. We don't concern ourselves with what others might be dealing with. And this is important because it explains to us that God is not complacent. He is not passive. He is persistent and he is active. So let's read 8 through 10 together this morning. It says, or what woman, if she has 10 silver coins and loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin which I had lost.' In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents." Now, we look at this woman, and there's a lot of things that we just simply don't know. And they're not the main point, but it's things that we can discuss and kind of bring into this, to the context of this passage. What she has lost, the word there in Luke chapter 15, verse 8, the word there is a word for a coin that represented a daily wage, what you would receive for working for an entire day. So to put ourselves maybe in her position, I want you to think about if you have a salary or if you're paid hourly and you do a job and you work for a day, and you make X amount of dollars, I want you to imagine working for that and then losing it. You've spent all day, maybe it's a 9-to-5 gig, maybe it's something that you did some overtime on, maybe it's a swing shift. No matter what it was, you've worked, you have done something to earn this wage, and it's equivalent to an entire day of your life. This is the amount of money that this woman has misplaced. Now, culturally, this was probably part of her savings. It was probably a part of some headdress or something that she adorned herself with that was some sort of decoration. Most people speculate that this was something that she wore every day as a token of her marriage. Something that she wore. Wives were given a necklace or a headdress that they wore. It was part of their everyday fashion that they put on to recognize that they had been wed to someone. And so it had 10 coins. And it could have been worn around the neck, it could have been worn on the head, but it was something that they wore every single day. So not only is this part of her savings more than likely, not only is it something that she will eventually need if she falls upon difficult times, it's also something that's very sentimental to her. It meant something to her. And all we know is that she had a coin. We don't know exactly what kind of coin it was, but we know what it represented, and we know that she lost it. It was something for safekeeping. It had sentimental value, and now it's gone. There's no good to be spent. What can you buy with a lost coin? If you lose your wallet, if you lose your purse, and you go to Ingles today, and you fill up your cart, and you get to the register, and you get everything scanned, and everything comes to the line, and the cashier says it's $140, which would get you about 3 things in today's economy. So you get your 3 things, you get the total, it says $140. You say, I've got a wallet. I've got a billfold, and it's got $150 in it. But I don't have it on me. Can I still get this? And they're going to say no. Your hope at this point is that somebody is going to pay it forward behind you because you're in this precarious situation. And so when you lose something that has value, it's not worth anything anymore. It might be sentimental, it might mean something to you, but what is its value? She not only has lost this coin, she has lost its value in her life. It's worthless. It can't be spent. It can't be treasured anymore. It's something that she once held dearly in her heart, wore on her body, and now it's lost. But it's not lost in the wild. It didn't wander away on its own. And here's one of the main contrasts from the lost sheep to the lost coin. The lost sheep gets caught up by its own desires and its own distractions. And the example that we've given week after week is that it took one nibble at a time, and it was led slowly but surely away from that place of protection that the shepherd wanted to keep it in. But that was the sheep. The coin didn't do that. It's lost. It didn't wander away. It's lost inside the house. It didn't rebel. It didn't leave on its own. This is an inanimate object. It can't go off on its own because it wants to be spent on something else. She lost the coin inside the house. And I think one of the best points from this parable, from this response of Jesus that we see, and it's, I believe, a sub-point, but it is one worth making, it's this: lostness doesn't always look like rebellion. It doesn't always look like running out into the wild. It doesn't always look like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Sometimes lostness is quiet. Sometimes it's as quiet as a coin no longer jingling on your neck or in your pocket, but rolling under the couch. out of commission. Sometimes it's not lost in the wild. Sometimes it's very familiar, and it's actually not that far away. Sometimes something is lost, and it's right within arm's reach. It's inside with you. It's close in proximity. It's not always loud. It's not always wild. Sometimes it's quiet and quaint. Some of you in here today, statistically speaking, in a church our size, 200, give or take a few, across our campus today. More than likely, based on kind of how I see things right now. Statistically speaking, there's 200 of us here today. 30% are lost in the house. You're lost. You're out of circulation. You're out of commission inside the house. You're not wandering in the wild. You're not rebelling like the world. You're not being led astray by the desires of your own heart. You're lost in religious familiarity. You're lost in comfortability, coziness, and the quaint fellowship that the social club that church has become to you. You're lost inside the house. You might teach. You might have mastered the language. You might have doctrinal points that you can articulate till you are blue in the face. You might give. You might serve. You might do everything that there is to do being associated with the people of God. But if your clock expired, you would hear the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, verses 22 and 23, when Jesus says this, "Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name did we not cast out demons? And in your name perform many miracles? And I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness.'" You're in the house, but you're lost in it. You're caught up in all the wrong things for all the wrong reasons. Your proximity is close, but God's presence is not in your heart. It might be in your head, but it's not in your heart. And if it's not in your heart, regardless of how it's active in your hands, your heart is far from the heart of God. We can be close to the things of God. We can be all mixed up with the people of God. We can play the part of a coin that has value, of a coin that's in circulation. We can have all the looks and the sounds and the behaviors of being a Christian and spend an entire eternity apart from the heart of God. The reality is this coin just slips through the cracks. We don't know how, we don't know why, we're not told where it goes. We're not told where she finds it. All we're told is that she does find it. And I wonder, and it grieves my heart to think about this, 126 years of our church's existence. Praise God for that. Praise God for the legacy and the testimony of Colbert Baptist Church to God's glory in this community for over a century. What a remarkable testament to the people of God who have met and gathered here to worship Him. But I can't help but wonder how many people have sat in these very pews Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday and slipped right through the cracks. Your pew could be impressioned to the shape of your body. It could be so familiar with how you sit and where you sit that it looks like you when you get up off the cushion and you have the scent from your perfume or from your cologne in that area. You could be here time and time again and slip right through the cracks. So not only do I wonder how many people statistically could have sat in these very pews consistently and slipped right through the cracks, I wonder how many today are in danger of the very same thing. How many of us today are just simply playing a part? How many of us today are lost inside the building? We're lost inside the house where the people of God gather. God cares about quiet lostness too. He cares about people who are right here all the time, every Wednesday, every Sunday, serving on committees, giving from their bank accounts, giving from their skills, their time, their talent, their treasure, pouring themselves out while their hearts are far from him. He doesn't just care about that sheep that's wandered away, lost and in danger of dying at the hands of wolves and eagles and enemies. He cares about the one who sits right here every Sunday, whose heart is determined to be against the things of God as they serve themselves. It's equal in his eyes. He doesn't care where you come from. He cares that you come to him. He doesn't care how you're lost. He cares that you're found. And we see in this first response that he's like a good shepherd who seeks after every single one of his sheep. And we see in today's response that he is like this woman who has lost one of her 10 coins. Sometimes it's the sheep. Sometimes it's inside the house, just comfortable in darkness. But you know what both of these characters have in common from the sheep to the coin? The sheep and the coin cannot do anything to find and save themselves. That's the one thing that connects them. A sheep's not going to find its way home, and a lost coin can't return itself back to your pocketbook. It can't put itself back in your pocket so the next time you go to buy a Coke from the vending machine that you can pop it right out and slide it right in. They are lost and they are totally dependent on someone coming to save them and to find them. And God says, that's me. That's me. I came. I mean, that's the incarnation. It's what God did through Jesus. Neither can do anything to save themselves. And in that reality exists God's absolute greatest glory, that he turned the house, he turned the universe upside down to seek and save the lost. He bankrupted heaven when he sent Jesus to get in the thick of our mess and to give us hope for victory. Turns the house upside down. Now, we all have things that are of sentimental value to us. Last week, I got to share about our anniversary, 12 years. And then we hit the 1-year mark 11 years ago. And I did the unthinkable. I did something that I said I was never going to do. I have crippling allergies. I tell the kids this because it's easier. They ask me, Dad, what are you allergic to? I said, it's easier to tell you what I'm not allergic to. I was allergy tested about 6 or 7 years ago. They do the 40 needles in your arms. I was positive to 38 out of 40 things, okay, so hyper-reactive. I tell the kids I'm just allergic to earth at this point, okay, and so I was positive for 38 out of 40 things, and I was positive plus for 22 of those 38 things. So I'm not just allergic, I'm real allergic to a lot of stuff. And you know what's at the top of my list? Flowers, yes, cats. And what did I do that I said I would never do for this lovely bride of mine on the front row over here 11 years ago? We got a cat. Now, I am allergic to cats. Stella, bless her heart, is a vindictive creature. If you've been to our house and you've met her, she is just all kinds of, she wants to get even. She bites. She was declawed before we adopted her. And so she knows that her only defense is just to lash out. She's like a viper. Man, she just strikes at people all the time. Most people have signs on their door at their driveway that says, beware of dog. We've joked about getting a sign for our cat that says, beware, she bites, so people know that she will do this to you. So we get this cat 11 years ago, and we're living in Comer at the time. And so we go and we adopt this cat, and she had actually been returned after she had been adopted once, but should have told us something already. But we did not heed the warning of Stella, whose name was Peyton, so now she's Stella Peyton to us. She has a full name. And so Stella comes home with us to the Comer house, and we're sitting there at the breakfast nook looking at the cat. And so we're trying to get the house cat-proof and everything, because she's declawed, she really can't go outside. Because she can't climb a tree, she can't defend herself, from a predator or anything like that. And it had probably been, what would you say, hour and a half, tops. We couldn't find Stella. okay? And so this Comer house, probably about 2,200 square foot. It's got an upstairs and a downstairs, an unfinished basement, which had baby copperheads in it at one time. So we're pretty nervous about what's going on with this cat, and bless Jenna's heart, she just sat down at the breakfast nook and just sobbed. We've got this cat for an hour, and meanwhile, what are we doing? Man, we're looking everywhere. Everywhere we can look in this house. She's a little bitty thing. She's got fluffy hair, but her actual size is pretty small. And so we have this storage room that the door stays cracked in a lot of times when we were in Comer. And we thought, surely she didn't go in there. There's just stuff all in this room. But we knew if she got in there, we'd have a difficult time finding her. So we go into this room. Now, we've only been married for a year. Because we had a basement, everybody just sent their stuff to our house for us to hold on to them for safekeeping. So we just got stuff everywhere in this house. I go in this junk room, if you will, and I'm just throwing stuff around, looking for this cat. No, she's not in there, so I close the door. We come back to the dining room nook over there, and we're both upset. I feel responsible because I had left this side door open for just like 15 seconds, and we think she got out. And this is just where ignorance was bliss at the time. We knew she was microchipped, okay? And so this is 2013, 2014, and we didn't really know what that meant. So we call the animal hospital, we call the animal shelter where we adopted her from, and we think it's like on Jurassic World where they can track the dinosaur, like as it's out in the wild. And so we call, and we feel really silly because this poor guy on the other end of the phone, he has to explain to us that this is not a mobile tracking device for the cat. And so we're sitting there, now we're embarrassed, we've lost the cat, and finally, we just say, okay, we're going to look one more time, then we're going to go start to look outside everywhere. In Stella, we have this little nightstand in this junk room, and it had like this much space underneath it. And Stella had squeezed her way in there because she was afraid. So she went to somewhere that was dark, that was quiet, and that she was comfortable hiding in. And I didn't think she could fit there. I mean, it's like a cockroach, like sliding underneath there. And so finally I go in that room and I call her name, and I hear this little bitty, and sure enough, she had squeezed herself in there. I turned that house upside down because that cat was precious to us, primarily to Jenna, but precious to us. We tore the house upside down looking for her so she would be found. And that's exactly what God does for us. He searches tirelessly. He searches endlessly. And he doesn't stop until we are found. It says about this woman who's lost the coin. What woman, if she has 10 silver coins and loses one, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and search carefully until she finds it? See, God's grace is not passive, it's pursuant. It comes after us, it pursues us. He doesn't just sit idly by and let us figure things out for ourselves. He turns the house upside down. It's not a casual search for this woman. She gets a broom, and brooms in their day are not the big brooms that we can go and get from Lowe's or even the tall brooms with the stick now. It was typically a bundle of some sort of limbs and maybe some different fabric or cloth that were bundled together and tied at the end. So you had to bend down or get on your hands and knees to sweep. So she's getting down in the thick of things. This is not a casual search. She's getting dirty. She lights a candle, she gets the broom, and she sweeps, and that's our God. He's not afraid of getting dirty to find us. He's not afraid of getting in the thick of things to save us. He didn't just get down on his hands and knees. He came down from heaven so that we might be saved and crawled around in our form. He took on flesh so that we might have hope of being found. That's the picture of God. Isaiah, in chapter 9, Isaiah paints the picture of the Messiah to come as this great light who would come into the land of deep darkness. And that's where we're at without God stepping into the race. We are lost in darkness, and some of us today are completely content to stay there. Some of us today are completely content to sit back and be comfortable in a dark, quiet place where no one's going to bother us and no one's going to mess with us and no one's going to have any expectations for us. And so we just build our little cave of protection and we just sit there. And God says, no, you need to be found. You are worthless in that place. I've got a plan for you. And I want to celebrate and I want to enjoy you. So this Messiah to come is this great light. And this is what the candle looks like. It says she not light a lamp. Houses then didn't have a lot of windows. There's not a lot of natural light. Even on an overcast day, we have natural light in here today that's coming through these windows that are stained glass. Okay, so we still have light despite that for us today. They didn't have a lot of windows, and if they had any, they just had one and it was small. And so she lights a candle so she can find, she lights a lamp so she can find this lost coin. Why do we need that? Why do we need this light to come? Well, John tells us in chapter 3, verses 19 through 21 of his gospel. Here's what he says, and this is right after one of the most famous verses in all the Bible. It says, "This is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and men love the darkness rather than light, for their deeds were evil." We love doing what we want to do. We love living in darkness. We love staying in the cave. We love staying comfortable. We love turning a blind eye to what God's word says if it means we get to do what we want to do. It says in verse 20, "For everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed, so we stay away." We don't want people to know. We don't want people to know that we've been sitting here for 10, 20 years and our heart's far from God. We don't want people to know that we've taught, that we've gave, that we've served, but our heart was far from God. So we sit back because we love the darkness. We know our hearts. We know what's within it, and we're afraid of anyone else knowing. Verse 21, "But he who practices the truth comes to the light so that his deeds may be manifested as having been wrought in God." So this light that was to come came into this place of deep darkness where we love the things that we do. Ephesians 4:18 tells us that sin blinds us. But when you were blinded by your sin, he saw you lost in it. When you were cold and unresponsive, like a cold coin that had rolled away under a piece of furniture, he saw after you. He came into this world because of you so that he might be glorified by your salvation and how he saved you. John 8:12 tells us that Jesus is the light of the world. John 1:9 says that Jesus is the light of all mankind. And Psalm 27:1 says that the light and salvation, he's the light and salvation for those who trust in him. He pursues us when we wander, and he finds us and restores our worth. And that has been good news to some of you for a very long time. But the news is greater still because he is still seeking, he is still searching, he is still sweeping and turning the house upside down today. If you are lost and destined to spend eternity apart from him. That's been good news. It's still good news. It will always be good news. His spirit is still moving. His word is still illuminating the caverns of our heart where we hide these things that we're terribly afraid of people knowing that separate us from God. And his finished work is still saving. The third thing that we see, it's in verse 9, is that the joy of finding is greater than the cost of searching. The joy of finding is greater than the cost of searching. It doesn't say that she was worked up about the mess. It doesn't say that she was worked up about the expense. Listen, if she's turning the house upside down, there's a good chance if she lost one, she could lose another one of her coins. If she's really going through everything in the house, she runs that risk. But the joy of finding was greater to her than the cost of searching. And what's the cost of saving a soul? The cross of Jesus Christ. The cross of Jesus Christ. That is the price for our sin. That is the payment that was given. And God did not spare his own son. He sent him, and he sent him to that cross. God is not just tolerating you. I know that there is somebody that needs to hear that today because of something that you've got going on in your life, something that you're struggling with. Maybe you're not lost, but maybe you feel yourself rolling away end over end from your owner today. God is not just tolerating you, he's delighting in you. If you have been saved by him, you are one of his greatest treasures and joys. He's not just sitting idly by waiting for you to figure it out, and you are not a burden to him. He wants to celebrate you. You are a cause for celebration. And so is that soul next to you. And so is that person across the street. And so is that person at the table next to you at the restaurant. And so is that person at the grocery store in line behind you. What's the price of a soul? What was it worth to God? It's worth sending his own son, not to just lay down his life, but to suffer, to be humbled, and to taking our image. And to laying down his life, he was led like a lamb to the slaughter to pay the price that I could not pay for myself, to get me to the place that I have no hope of getting to on my own. The last point that we see from the lost coin is this. The soul next to us was worth that. We're worth that, but heaven celebrates what we often overlook. Heaven celebrates what we often overlook. This is one coin. It's not 100 coins. It's not 1,000 coins. This is one coin, and it represents one sinner. This isn't a revival. This isn't a church strategy conference. This isn't somebody being a part of some big movement, some big catalyst. This is simply one repentant sinner. Now, we celebrate a lot, especially in the South. We just love to celebrate things. We just like to get together and do things and have a good time. I mean, weddings, anniversaries, babies, promotions, retirements, all these things, we get together and we celebrate. We celebrate all the things that mean a lot to us, and it's a way of us recognizing human work and applauding ourselves for human effort and success. But the sound of heaven is not applause for human effort and success. It's a roar of joy when someone who was lost is found. That's what heaven sounds like. It's praise to God, and it's celebration about his saving work, reaching and saving another lost soul. That's a big difference between here and there. Somebody who was found and forgiven by God. And these examples are heartbreaking, but in both of them, with the lost sheep and the lost coin, one of the common denominators is this. In both of them, a modest object is made a priority because God values what we so often overlook. God values what we so often overlook. We're really good at assuming. We're really good at assuming that this person that we know, that we work with, this family member that we've known for 10, 20, 30 years or our lifetime, however long that is, this neighbor that's lived across the street for 10, 20, 30 years. We're really good at assuming because of just this tiny little thing in their life or maybe one little thing that they said. We're really good at overlooking and assuming that they are found. But statistically speaking, we're the minority. We're the ones who are found, and we overlook those who are lost. Who does God value? Who do we overlook? God values the broken so they can be made whole. God values the addicts so they can be free. God values the forgotten and overlooked so they can be found. And God values those who have sat in pews and been dusted over and just collected familiarity for years and years and years so that they can be cleaned up and used for him with a right heart posture, with the right attitude for his glory.